Does stress follow you around like a bad smell? Or like the little rain cloud in the Pink Panther just hovering around all the time? What about the emails that keep you awake at 2 in the morning, going over and over the conversation, and you mention it to your friends and it's like nothing ever happened? So today we're going to be looking at why some people are more prone to stress than others. Hi, welcome back to the channel. I'm Julie.
I'm Mike.
So we're talking about whether some people are more prone to stress than others. So when we talk about stress, we're actually talking about anxiety and the fear response that's embedded in all of us. So we spoke about this last week and we decided that we're going to do a follow-up on whether some people were more prone to stress. And I had a few ideas at that point about what I thought we should cover. And then you went off, didn't you? Did some research.
I did.
Yeah. And Mike came back with his research and I read through it and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I wouldn't have done it like that. And then I instantly thought,
Welcome to my life, everybody.
that's such a typical wife thing to say, isn't it? Oh, well.
It is.
But I thought what we do is we'll go through the research that you found because it is interesting.
Are you going to mark my homework, are you?
And Mark Meg's homework. Let's see how he does. And then I think when we've been through that and set the scene, I will explain.
Where I went wrong.
No, not where you went wrong, but why I think we need to take it a little bit further.
Mm-hmm.
And why we need to go a little bit beyond what some of the most common videos will probably talk about.
Right, okay.
Which is personality types, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the research went down the route of some personality types are more prone to stress than others.
It did.
So we'll talk about that first, and then we'll come on to my angle and how I think we can talk about that in a slightly different way.
Okay.
Okay. So apparently psychology nerds are calling this stress magnetism.
Okay.
Okay. Personality styles that actually soak up stress. So I think we need a bit of a drum roll here.
Oh, okay. I will, but I can't do it on this table because last week I put a coffee down. It sounded like a bomb had gone off. So I'll do it post edit. That's what us video editors say. Post edit.
Video magic.
Yeah.
So, the Anxious Worrier,
Yeah.
the Perfectionist,
Yeah.
and the Emotional Neurotic. I think personally that's a terrible phrase. But then we were watching Basil Fawlty, weren't we, yesterday?
You were watching Basil Fawlty yesterday.
Yeah, and he was hitting his car with a branch. And I just thought, I wonder if that's an emotional neurotic, somebody whose emotions are just so intense and they go off in a split second. So today we'll look at why these personality types are more prone to hitting the panic button
Cool.
and what we can do to calm it all down. But we're not going to leave it there because I think that when we give ourselves labels or personality types, I think we gloss over some of the root causes. And I'd like to go one step further and find out how these personality types develop in the first place.
Okay.
So we'll do that towards the end.
Fine.
Okay. So let's start with the Anxious Worrier.
Okay.
I think this is a classic. The boss pings an email saying, when you've got a minute, pop in and see me.
Yeah.
And within a few seconds, heart racing, our palms are sweating,
Yeah.
and we're already preparing our resignation speech in our head.
What have I done? Did he hear me on that conference call? Yeah, yeah.
Probably if it was you.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I think if the boss said, there's nothing to worry about, I don't think that'd help. Because I think a part of our brain would go, oh, why have they said that? Why have they said there's nothing to worry about?
Is he just saying that to get me in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is what we call the worrier's superpower. Taking something neutral and turning it into a massive catastrophe.
Yeah. Not my definition of a superpower, but clearly it's theirs.
So we were talking last week about the amygdala hijack, and this is a classic example, that quick fire response. So our adrenaline starts pumping, we instantly feel like the victim, something awful is about to happen. And it's really, really disempowering. It's like we lose the trust in ourselves to solve a particular issue. And what should happen is the executive part of the brain should come up with a rational explanation, calm everything down, and settle the nervous system. Ideally, that's what happens. Should be our trusted best friend. But actually, what happens is it stokes up the fear response with these imaginary stories, these playing out all of these different situations. So, on the one hand, our body is feeling that sense of danger, and on the other hand, our mind is inflating that sense of danger and making everything feel a lot worse. So, here's the option for calming that down and resetting it. The easiest approach is to get those worst case scenarios, those greatest fears, out of our head and down onto paper. So have a brain splurge, get them all onto paper. And then to go through them and score them from 1 to 10. What's the likelihood of those things actually coming to fruition?
Yeah.
And once we do that, we're giving the rational part of our brain an opportunity to more accurately assess what's going on. So once they're down on paper, we can score them 1 to 10. What's the true likelihood of this thing that we fear happening? And this starts to separate our thoughts from the chaos that's going on in the brain. And all of a sudden, this emotional apocalypse will just start to settle down.
Okay.
Now, I think I could probably do an entire episode on worry. So if that's something that does plague you, like and subscribe, and there'll be more tools on that later. So next up, we've got the perfectionist. The perfectionist looks absolutely serene on the outside, like everything's under control, and that's exactly how they like it, isn't it? Everything under control.
It is exactly how they like it, yeah.
What was that look for, Mike?
Nope. I plead the fifth.
But at what cost? Because often on the inside, they're fighting their own mini battle because they need to make sure that everything is flawless. Anything else, anything less than perfection feels like complete failure, like getting booed off stage. It feels very public, very exposed.
Yeah.
And I think being perfect is like the safety blanket. Everything else feels a little bit vulnerable, less than. So in that situation, even very, very simple mistakes become unacceptable, and it's tapping into that fear response. It's triggering the fear response and the adrenaline rush because we've got that obsession, that heightened sense of everything needing to be right, and that worry about everything getting upset by a minor error.
Mm-hmm.
So the option here is to start to really understand that 80-20 rule.
The what rule?
The 80-20 rule.
80-20.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is 80% good enough? And what are we actually getting by delivering the 20%? Would a stranger notice the difference? And the answer is probably not. So how much effort is that 20% really worth? I think the other thing is that it can keep us awake at night as well. So if we're in the habit of mulling over the day, thinking about the things we've missed, I think we need to flip that around. And at the end of each day, if we can get into a habit of noticing everything we've done, then that starts to re-educate the brain and to focus the brain more to what we've actually done rather than what we've missed or still got left. So simple paper, pen by the side of the bed, jot down everything you've achieved at the end of the day, and then just get into that habit of doing that every day. And that's just going to retrain our thought patterns.
Cool.
So what we can do is we can start to celebrate good enough. So what I'd like you to do this week is put in the comments every time you did something less than 110%, because that's where the perfectionist brain is. Put the number And let's celebrate being just good enough. See how you get on with that this week.
You're on.
So the third personality type is the emotional neurotic. I think this is a really...
Why did you do that? You almost gave yourself whiplash.
I just think it's such a harsh description. It really is, because we're all on, I feel we're all on this emotional roller coaster all of the time. And depending on what's going on in our life, you know, we can really be up there. We can be on that threshold of just being triggered, depending on what's happening for us. So it's not that, you know, it's one person is prone to this type of behaviour. I think we're all capable of it.
Okay. Touched the nerve there.
So this is if you're quick to react with your emotions. Maybe you're very easily frustrated, very easily angered, or even very easily tear up. So the slightest thing just sets you off. And this could be a real sign that your emotions are always on high alert. They're always ready to be
Ready to
tipped over
go.
the edge. Yeah, yeah. So the anxious worrier is always thinking about the future and the doom in the future. The perfectionist is obsessing over the flaws, but the third personality type is almost like a pinball going from one thing to another. So they can be worrying about the future, ruminating over the past, obsessing about something that's happening now. And it's very, very volatile, very volatile way to live or to feel. So this type of trait has a really quick response to threat. Psychologists call it the startle response.
Okay.
And when the brain gets involved, what it tends to do is it comes up with the stories that are going to make it harder for the fear response to settle down. So this means that this person will have a low level of adrenaline, cortisol, the chemicals of stress are probably running around the body most of the time.
Okay.
So when we've got those stress chemicals bubbling away 24/7, you can guess what's going to happen. It makes us more prone to our fear response because we've already got the chemicals of stress in our body. And then we react more quickly, we find it harder to settle down, and so really all of the time our stress chemicals are building and building and building, and we're probably more likely to flip that over into exhaustion or burnout
No.
because our body is constantly on
Yeah.
high alert. So this does remind me of Basil Fawlty, because getting annoyed now is, why is my life like this? It's not, we don't see it as a one-off. It's like, oh, my life is so irritating and frustrating. Why is this always happening to me? And there's a whole drama around everything that happens. Everything is always on DEFCON 10. Mike, you are smiling. And this basically means that we're in a constant state of arousal. And given the number of processes in the body that are involved to sustain that, it's a very, very expensive way for the body to live. So we're going to be more prone to illness.
Is that the word we're going to go with?
Expensive.
Arousal.
Arousal. Hyper arousal.
That's just worse.
But it is hyper arousal. Or high arousal.
No,
I've got in
stop.
my notes.
You're not making it better.
You can cut that bit out.
If that's the science, that's the science. If that's what it's called, that's what it's called.
Yeah,
It's
hyper
just
arousal.
not the image I'm coming up with. It says more about me than the science.
Certainly does. Shall we move on?
I think we're probably best, yeah. I mean, that's staying in, but yeah, we'll move on.
So, what can we do? I think this is easier said than done. But before we explode, we can set a timer, 2 minutes, offload all of these thoughts onto paper. Everything that's happening to us, we can describe our feelings, our thoughts, sensations in the body, but just get everything down onto paper. And then the next stage is to play detective. Go back and look at everything that you've written down. And as a detective, you're looking for evidence. What evidence have you got that supports that stuff that you've just written down? Really validating that experience. So, step one is actually validating your feelings, because whether you agree with them or not, they're happening for you. And this is the thing that we need to come to terms with. Like it or not, we are having this
They're not going away,
experience.
are they?
Yeah,
They always
exactly.
embrace it,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's not about squashing them, it's about getting them out in the open. And then step two is allowing the rational part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, to actually step in and to start doing its job and just bring in that rational perspective to what's going on for us. So what you'll find is if you practice this for a few weeks, you'll still experience those emotions and the intensity, but you'll start taking a diversion. Instead of exploding, you'll start to teach the brain how it can start to assess the situation before it reacts. And that's what we're trying to
Okay.
achieve. So let's have a little bit of a roundup of those personality types. Thank you, Mike, for going off to research then. So roundup. Worriers, get it down on paper, play detective, and go through the likelihood of the various scenarios actually playing out. Score them 1 to 10.
Score them properly.
Yes, score them
Because I know you're
properly.
anxious and you probably think you're getting fired, but are you really getting fired?
You might be.
Yeah. I don't get a warning from my boss. It's normally just might get in here. And then I know what's happening.
So for perfectionists, start getting good at celebrating 80% and ask yourself, what does the extra 20% really bring? Would a stranger notice? You'll notice because that's the way you're wired, but would a stranger notice? And then just to give that brain some time off at the end of the day, start to document or celebrate what you've actually done, flipping the focus from what you've done rather than what you haven't done. The 80 versus the 20.
So don't do less. Just acknowledge everything that you've done and realise it's enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And if your emotions do run on a hair wire, then try that journaling process for 7 days. Just give it a go. You might be very, very skeptical. Skeptical.
Skeptical?
Skeptical. Just give it a go and see how you get on with it. So get your thoughts, feelings, emotions, everything that's going on down onto paper, and then play detective. Look for evidence that supports the stories that you're telling yourself,
Or no?
or not. Yeah. So the big question for me is, where do these personality types come from, and does it matter?
Okay.
And I think it does matter, because I think we're talking about different flavours of managing the fear response. So we know from science that when fear is triggered, there's a part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex. It's often referred to as the executive part of the brain. And when fear is triggered, it has two options. It can downgrade the threat, or it can increase the threat. So I think whether we're a worrier, a perfectionist, or an emotional neurotic, I think we have three things in common. And I think that is the prefrontal cortex can't accurately assess the level of fear and downgrade it. So instead of rationally assessing things and calming things down, it actually goes down the route of stoking our fear response up. Now, if you want to go deeper on this, on the science, there's a great book called The Emotional Life of Your Brain.
I thought you
Great
were going to plug
titles.
your book then.
Oh, no, not again, the book. I've written a book, by Davidson and Begley, and it's all about the science of how the brain works and how our personality types come into play. Very, very interesting book. But I thought for today, rather than say go off and read that book for 3 days or 3 weeks, I'd just summarise what they cover in the book in this area. So the prefrontal cortex it's called the executive part of the brain, and it's responsible for decision making, risk assessment, and planning. Now, if the activity in the right side of the brain is stronger than the activity in the left side of the brain, we are more prone to assessing situations negatively
With the right hand side of the brain.
with the right hand side of the brain.
Right.
That's what their science has discovered, and there's lots of science now going down this route of exploring how the brain actually works. So greater left side activity makes us more prone to positive reactions. So this got me thinking even more, because I've written this down many times when I've been doing presentations and talking people through things, and I thought, well, what do we actually mean by activity? What is it? It could be anything, couldn't it? What we're actually talking about is neural activity. So last week we talked about the information highway. So in the brain we have these circuits like roadways, and they go from different organs in the brain to our amygdala, our fear response. So if you think about roads that lead from the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex, and there's like a negative route and a positive route. Now, the other thing we know from neuroscience is these routes aren't fixed. This is where it gets really, really clever, because it all comes down to habit. So if we've experienced adversity in the past and we have learned to assess things negatively, then that becomes a habit. That go-to route in the brain is more available to us than the alternative. So that side of the brain is more likely to be initiated when we hit the fear response.
Right.
So in this case, the right hand side of the brain is probably more active when the fear response goes off. So we're more likely to treat our experiences as negative. And that means that the prefrontal cortex, whose job is to assess risk, downgrade, plan, problem solve, is actually going to go down a negative approach rather than a positive approach.
Right.
The more we exercise the right hand side of the brain, the stronger it gets. So how we've shaped that brain is going to set the foundations for how we react and how these personality types come into fruition. So I think the activity gets formed first, and then as human beings, we label it as a particular style of personality.
Right.
So all of the tips we've covered today are cognitive. They're things that we recognise, and then we are going to take action that's going to start pushing our brain in a different direction. So what I'd like to do next week is look at how we change those neural pathways in the brain and how
Oh,
we
yeah.
change them at a deeper level. And I think as well at some point we'll cover that session on worrying, dig a little bit deeper.
Because you can rewire your brain.
Absolutely. And that's the concept of neuroplasticity, the fact that the brain is, I can't say this word, is it malleable?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well done.
marvellous. Yeah, so like putty, we can shape it, and that's a really interesting discovery, isn't it? So it's not set in stone. So if you've listened today and you've gone, oh, I've got that personality, I'm doomed, it doesn't have to be that way, and that's what we'll be discussing next time.
You become familiar with the phrase, what fires together, wires
What
together?
fires together, wires together, hob or heb, hob, heb, 1949 or 47. Anyway, so if that sounds like something that might be helpful and you want to find out more, particularly about the wiring, then like and subscribe.
Or just join us next week.
Indeed. So whatever you're doing this week, take care. See you soon.
Bye for now.